I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's block we call Inspiring Inception. Defined loosely as a series of images, thoughts, and sensations that play out in one's mind while they sleep, dreams are something we all experience, even if we don't remember them. Psychologists like Freud believe that dreams manifest from our deepest desires, anxieties, and are often related to repressed childhood memories, unique to us all. But what if another individual was able to enter someone's dream? This shared experience could be very beneficial, allowing therapists an opportunity to see firsthand the inner workings of their patient's mind, helping them to pinpoint an issue and manage it head-on. What could possibly go wrong? Today's block focuses on films that present different perspectives on the shared dream experience and how they inspired the 2010 Christopher Nolan film, Inception. Wunderkind psychic Alex Gardner is enlisted by a shadowy government agency to join a top-secret project designed to enter another person's dream. While initially used to help people, Alex soon finds out this technology has a more nefarious motive. Dennis Quaid, Max von Sydow, and Christopher Plummer star in 1984's Dreamscape. Utilizing a high-tech headset known as the DC Mini, Dr. Chiba enters the dreams of her patients in order to help them cure from within their mind. When a prototype of the DC Mini is stolen, Dr. Chiba must spring into action as her dream world alter ego, Paprika, in the 2006 film, Paprika. In a world where all antitrust law is unenforceable, monopolies must be broken up with corporate espionage. But not just any corporate espionage. This must be carried out inside the dreams of the monopolist. A group of 6 thieves will break into the mind of a business rival, not to extract an idea, but to incept one. From 2010, this is Christopher Nolan's Inception. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
It's just funny how when Japanese folks, when they name people, there's always meaning. It's never just some throwaway thing. Like the name Golgo is actually like a meaning. Like it means Golgotha, like where Christ was crucified, and like there's like this big thing about it, and but it really doesn't have much to do with the guy.
It's funny you said that, because it's like I was listening to an interview with a writer on Dreamscape, or one of the 3 credited writers, but like I guess the guy who kind of like started the ball rolling.
Yeah.
David Lowery. He sort of wrote the sort of initial draft, and then Chuck Russell and the director Joseph Rubin came in and they all took what his bones were and kind of fleshed it out. But anyway, the David guy was talking about how he ended up naming all these characters, and it's like, I knew a guy in college named Bob Blair, so I called him that. Alex Gardner, that was like an obscure like AAA ball guy. Finch, that was my dog's name. It's like he's like had all these like random things he was using to name these characters, and so it was like just the opposite of what you're describing for the Japanese, infusing all the names with meaning.
There's always an opposite. Light and darkness, life and death, and to spice it all up, you add
Paprika.
All right. Welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me as always is Jeremy Floyd. Hello, and how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's like
I'm sure that this probably wouldn't even matter by the time this goes up, but this is our first recording of the new year here, 2021. Very excited.
Don't tell anybody. Well, maybe we should explain
slow turnaround time.
Yeah, exactly. Explain how rusty we are in this episode.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying. Yeah.
Doing all right, and I'm not really sure what is real and what's not.
I figured it was either I was in the 3rd layer of a dream or just really bored from staying inside from the pandemic for the last year.
And as a dream world, boy, did they get all these things wrong.
An absolute nightmare world. Oh, boy. Yeah, a good start to 2021 here. I would say just from the movie's perspective, not so much
Does
from
anybody
the...
remember how cool 2020 was? Anybody nostalgic for that yet?
God, I can't forget it. That's for damn sure. Today, if you haven't noticed, we are talking about dream movies, specifically films that are about more or less like government programs that use dreams to create, a shared experience between two people. And in some instances, there's, information that's being either implanted or taken out, or we're finding out people's issues through their life, through their dreams, or we're going in and assassinating folks. So these are really films...
or all of the above.
Or all of the above, exactly. These films all, in many ways, inspired what became Christopher Nolan's 2010 film, Inception. And we're talking today about Dreamscape from 1984, Paprika from 2006, and Inception from 2010. Fun block. Very fun block. Especially because of Dreamscape.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites growing up.
It's funny. I saw the movie, off of the Blu-ray. I think Shout Factory has a disc of it now. But I later looked at the poster, which I hadn't seen in years and years.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Boy, oh boy, does it look like fellow 1984 movie Temple of Doom.
Yeah, Temple of Doom, yeah, exactly.
Also with Kate Capshaw.
It's like the same exact animation of the character too, right? Yeah. Like the hand out, and he's like holding something. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
He's got a torch.
Yeah.
He's got khaki pants and a brown leather jacket on.
No fedora though, so it's totally different.
No fedora, but he's got that kind of flared hairdo.
Oh, right.
That almost looks like a fedora.
They call that the Quaid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this one, we could get into it, but I do want to give a little history on Dreamscape. This was one of those movies that, of course, a horror movie that I would watch growing up. It was on TV quite a bit. I love this.
Real quick, on the horror part of it, you described it, I had never seen it, and you described it over text that it was a horror movie. And then, while watching it, I was like, an hour and change into the movie, I'm like, there's no horror in this. And then, it definitely pops in there. And I guess it does qualify. But
it does.
It's funny, it takes a little while for the horror to kind of kick in.
Yeah, you're right. It is mostly a science fiction movie, at least for 3/4 of the film. And then at the end, it does get a little action-y with some horror elements, especially the final dream with the president. I mean, that's strictly horror. I mean, you're in the middle of a post-apocalyptic landscape with a snake man chasing you. I think that sums it right up.
I think we can check that one off. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great movie, and it was really interesting again watching these three films together. I know you mentioned that when you went to go get these movies from the rental store, the guy asked you why you rented 3 of the same movie.
Right.
There are quite a few similarities between the 3.
It's like, are you sure you want all 3 of these? Same movie.
Just pick one.
Yeah.
But yeah, what'd you think of Dreamscape? This was your first time seeing it, right?
It was interesting. I kind of didn't know what to expect from it. And it was pretty wild. I really love the bad guy. Actually, all the bad guys they had in this. The Christopher Plummer playing the Machiavellian CIA or whatever he was, deep state actor, who is just going around trying to assassinate the president and make sure the nuclear deal stays through.
He was working behind the scenes with Burt Lancaster from our previous films.
Yeah, exactly.
Executive action.
Yeah, I felt the movie was completely unrealistic. They had a president of the United States who was somehow concerned about the nuclear program and wanting to disarm, and it's just outrageous. This movie is such bullshit.
I knew he'd have to inject some of that in there. But you're absolutely right. And the reason that this clandestine group wanted to kill the president was because he wanted to eliminate any sort of wartime weaponry or any sort of weapons,
right, and
create some sort of peace between.
Yeah, I mean, he was a president with a conscience, which is
only written in the movies.
Yeah.
So this is Dennis Quaid is a psychic. I believe his name's Alex. He is one of those wonder kid psychics that at one point in his life was taken away. This is all backstory that you kind of get through some of the discussion. He was taken away by Max von Sydow's character, Dr. Novotny, who would do tests on him as a psychic, and a bunch of other kids as well at the time. They mentioned that had some psychic powers, right. And they were training them to use those powers, you think, for good. Novotny did have a good idea in mind for these folks, but again, the U.S. government gets involved, and it becomes a weapon, or trying to weaponize this. And that's when we meet the bad guy from the Warriors, who is one of the nastiest dream assassins ever.
Right.
Who is he's so great.
This era of what's his name, David Patrick Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
This era of that guy, like he looks like the drawing of the Joker in The Killing Joke.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He just has this like almost like comic book villain face,
especially when he's eating that sandwich in a close up, talking to Dennis Quaid. He just kind of
must have had a bum ticker. I don't know.
Excuse me, Alex. I need some time by myself here. I need to relax after that.
No, but what's funny is like the backstory, which I thought they were going to get into a little more, but I thought it was very similar to Scanners. A little bit. In Scanners, it was Patrick McGowan, but it was like they're kind of developing these psychic warriors, which I guess is also kind of like based on MK Ultra, but it felt like they were kind of drawing on some of that, which it was all off screen. It was just kind of like a let everyone know how we got here. Type of scenario. Right.
A little bit more of an elegant approach to killing people, though, as opposed to blowing up their heads, just killing them in their sleep, and then they just don't wake up in the morning.
That's right.
But yeah, same idea. In this one, these psychics learn how to, basically control the dream around them, or learn how to control themselves within the dream, so they can kind of manipulate things to either help or hurt whoever they're going in to assist. Or assassinate.
Right. Did they have? Maybe I missed this detail, but did they have a period of discovery where they're like, "Oh, I can manipulate these dreams"?
They said there's one line, and it's kind of a throwaway line where Tommy, David Patrick Kelly, when he says, "Don't you know that this is a dream, Alex? We can control what's in here. Don't you know that yet?" And it's kind of okay. But they didn't really get into it. No, it's like one line.
Yeah, no, I do remember that line where it was like, because at the time I thought about how it was similar to the very cutesy line, which like seems out of place anyway in Inception, where it's like, "Don't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling."
I love that line. Tom Hardy's line. I love that one. He pulls out the grenade launcher. I love that line. The similar, I wanted to talk about the similarities between these, is that there are, machines and technology that are being used to help, these psychics and then the subjects kind of match brainwaves, whatever else the science is discussing in the narrative, I don't know. But basically match the brainwaves so that you can enter the dream, specifically in Dreamscape. But Alex learns later on that you don't need that, and he was such a powerful psychic that he didn't actually need that. In one of the rapiest scenes in the movie, I'm glad it didn't go over as bad as it could have. But obviously a questionable piece of storyline if you're rewriting this film when we remake it.
It does bring up an interesting sort of moral quandary, which I guess interestingly enough they did touch on it a little bit, which is that like. Okay, you invaded me in my dream space, so now we are both not in reality, but now we are approaching each other in this sort of mental reality.
Right.
And I guess what are the rules there, right? It's like, and what are the sort of moral obligations to even, join somebody's dream or not or whatever. At this point in the movie when that happened, we didn't know that this is heading toward this like sort of assassination game.
Right.
But like what was interesting was that like that question was then also sort of like underlined more clearly in the assassination part of the movie, where it's like, well, maybe this isn't good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we can draw a line there. Yeah.
Also touched on in Paprika, right? Wasn't that part of the story was that you, like having that kind of control. I know the old guy ends up being, the twist at the end. However, he does say, he's like, this is too much. You shouldn't have control like this. We need to stop the program. for those same reasons. You have a lot of control if you're in someone's brain or in their thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you die in the dream in Inception, I don't know what level you're on, I guess, or your sedation level, you will wake up. But if you die at a certain point in the dream in Dreamscape, you die in reality.
Yeah, the rules are quite different in these, except you're right. Inception does offer, if you are in that third onion layer or whatever the hell it is, if you're that deep, when things are slowed down to 1 second equals like 12 hours or something in that dream, that's when you can't wake up anymore, and you're stuck in, they said, limbo specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's you might not technically die, but you definitely will not wake up, and your brain or your mind is somewhere else.
Well, specifically, in the second act of the movie, to go so many layers deep without being interrupted and without having the victim of this mind crime be able to sneak out of it, they did that cocktail of different sedatives to keep you under, and because of that, apparently it wouldn't wake you up.
Right.
And
too much sedative.
Because you wouldn't wake up, you had to experience the amount of time that these sort of relative time things would take.
That's terrifying.
Which is why they had that huge exposition scene in the warehouse after sort of kidnapping Cillian Murphy or Killian or whatever the hell his name is. So they had to take all that time to explain all that. But it's like, as you're watching it, you're just like, oh no, a problem. And like, you're kind of just like, you're just kind of absorbing it because it's like way too much information.
I don't know what other way you can go about writing a movie like Inception without plain as day saying this straight out exactly what these rules are and what is happening, because from the get-go, that movie is extremely confusing. And it already starts within a dream within a dream. Like, they're already throwing you like 2 levels in before you even get past the first scene of the movie.
Which means I'm still dreaming.
You know what's interesting is that, like, if you watch the movie with the subtitles on, it sort of helps that rapid fire, like, information or exposition overload scenario. But it's also one of those things where it's edited too quickly because they didn't want to like bore anyone with like the explanations. And so if you read it on the page, so what's interesting is, saw this one in the theater, but later on, Andy was telling me that, or the friend of the show, Andy Buigues, was telling me that he saw the movie, read the script a couple years later, and then was trying to like puzzle out what the hell was actually happening. But then when we rewatched it, he was watching it after having just read it, and he was like, Jesus, it's like what you see on the page, it all makes sense. And then you see it sort of like rapid fire, in fast forward being explained to you. It's like, I can't process. Okay, just moving on. It's like,
Right.
I guess what you take away though is that like, okay, there's this problem and everyone kind of understands, oh yeah, it's a problem and we can't die. Okay, got it. That's all I need to know. That's why it's a problem. Okay, fine. But like, you can go back and, rewind and put on subtitles or whatever to like try and figure out the reasoning behind it.
But try to do that in the movie theater. I would have never.
Yeah, but I guess that it seems like that was done intentionally in the sense that like, okay, it'd be better just to keep the pace going. And, if someone wants to pour over every fucking detail of this, they can, and it's there. But as long as you understand the general thrust which is that like, oh no, we can't kill ourselves. We have to keep going or whatever. We can't get shot in these dreams or whatever. So that, that there are all of a sudden these like stakes where you don't die in the dream like you do in Dreamscape, but rather, your brain turns to mush.
Right.
Unless you're Saito, whose brain didn't turn to mush for some reason.
He just got really old.
Yeah.
But that was the beginning of the movie. That's what got so confusing, is that's what they throw you into, and that's something that happens so much later in terms of like Leonardo's growth as the character trying to figure things out. But you start there. Mm-hmm. Right? I think that's why that movie, even the third time I'm seeing it, for this podcast, I was like, no, I'm determined to understand this from the get-go, and I still did not. But I mean, I get it now.
You just think of like that opening scene is it's just like a cold open. It's sort of like a non sequitur. It's like, okay, here's whatever it would be, like, minute 130 of the movie, but we're going to give it to you as a little teaser, and then we'll go back to the beginning, which is, him doing the audition for Saito, which is, it's the beginning of the story, and then there's a lot of other backstory that takes us even further back, but anyway.
Well, I'd like to get your opinion, though. I mean, by the end of the film, Leo's character, he is trapped in limbo, right? I mean, that's what I'm getting out of it.
Well, it's definitely not clear. From context clues in the movie, there's this wedding ring theory that sort of like explains this stuff where it's like in these dreams, and anytime he's, clearly in a dream where it's like, the water's rushing in the sort of opening set piece there, he's wearing a wedding ring when he's doing the sort of really, really crazy over the top, like seeing the train drive through downtown LA. But when he's in the real world, quote unquote, he's not wearing a wedding ring, and that's supposed to kind of maybe give us a clue that what's real and what's not.
Does he have one on at the end?
He does not.
Okay.
And then, outside of the movie itself, like the direction that Michael Caine was given apparently was that anytime that he's on screen, it's real. So, because he was like, well, how do I act this? Am I acting like I'm in a dream? He's like, no.
I was going to say, how the hell are you supposed to act if you don't understand?
But who knows? Maybe that was just something he told Michael Caine to get him to shut up and say his lines.
They said that in Tenet, Robert Pattinson said flat out.
I have no idea.
Well, I know, but I haven't seen it either. But he said flat out, he's like, I shot 75% of my scenes and still had no fucking clue what this movie was about. And it's like, that's got to be tough for an actor, What's your motivation if you really don't get the plot?
Yeah, I guess, but for actors, like sometimes they'll, come on and just do a random scene or whatever, I don't know. But, he's the star of the movie. I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's kind of
he
a difference, but
John David Washington, I believe that's his name. I'm sure I'm going to get that one wrong, too. It's probably David John Washington.
Probably Washington is his last name. Given
I got that one right,
his father is.
Denzel, yeah, for sure. So let's go back to Dreamscape real quick. What was cool, we were talking about how each of the psychics that can enter a dream are able to control things and manipulate the space around them. Paprika,
we got on this like Inception tangent.
Sorry. Paprika offered up. Paprika is the alter ego of this main therapist, if you will, that can enter the dreams. But she goes in as this, alter ego Paprika, almost a superhero of sorts that can, kind of go in. And I thought that was very interesting that they took a little bit of, that Snake Man idea of, another person entering can change your whole persona and be somebody else in that dream.
Totally.
And I thought that was really successful in Paprika, although partway through when things split and we don't have any clue what's real, what's dream, what's Paprika, what's Dr.
Chiba.
It's like you'd have no idea at one point, but again, I can't fault a movie when it looks that gorgeous and the animation is just so beautiful. That movie is unbelievably gorgeous.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, I guess, what do you make of it when Chiba's running around in the dream, but then Paprika's also there? It's like she's some sort of projection or something. It's like the, but yeah, it's I guess they did that sort of twice. Also with the sort of, I don't know, the handsome younger guy. I don't remember the damn name, unfortunately, who was also like the, being controlled by the Professor X bad guy.
Professor X, yeah.
All the names I remembered. I remember Paprika.
It was pretty hard. I mean, like, there's Dr. Tokito is the obese guy that actually created the DC-10 or whatever they called the...
a DC Mini.
DC Mini.
DC Mini. The DC Mini, which was the machine that allowed for this dream sharing to happen. There's Dr. Chiba, obviously. And then Dr. Unui was the wheelchair-bound Professor X.
Professor X? Okay. Gotcha.
So you said that this was something that you'd seen before, right?
Yeah, I actually saw it in the theater. You know, it's funny, like a lot of the specifics of it. I mean, I do remember some of the detective, or at least in the dream, he's the detective, the mustachioed guy.
Sure.
I do remember some of that, and I remember some of the ending with the fat guy in the giant robot suit, and like, you know, some of that reminded me a little of Akira with, you know, how like the I don't know, Akira monster kind of like
the expansion
blows up at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, for some reason, a lot of the details, everything else, just kind of like fell right out of mind on this one. I mean, I guess I have to say, like, that happened with Inception too. It's like, but I think it's more in Inception. It's more about just the density of the details and the rules, and like where it's like, you know, they have all those different layers, and like, you know, how does one person get here, and how did they get there, and how did the guy survive, and whatever. It's like, you know, definitely forgot all those details, although I do remember sort of the general thrust of the movie. Whereas for some reason with Paprika, I kind of forgot that I had even seen it. Like,
the only thing I can remember is the animation of that movie and a few beat points, and I only watched it a couple days ago. So I could see where you're having some problems. It was really hard to follow. It is, because well, we've talked about this on previous episodes. It's that dream logic, right? Uh-huh. It's when you are in one place, you turn your head and you are somewhere else, or something has changed. And Paprika does a fantastic job of conveying that by, you know, with these crazy visuals, and all of a sudden people within your memory that are kind of within that subconscious are almost like filed into other bigger things within the dream. You know, like she just saw the head of the assistant, you know, in the dream, and then she knew that there was a connection there. It was like really odd how they placed that stuff. But other than that, like the details of it, no idea. I know that there were dreams, you know, this alter ego Paprika was trying to help with the dreams, help people, you know, get through certain issues and things. And this old guy didn't want that to happen. But of course he ended up being the ultimate bad guy by the end. Right. That's kind of what I got. And if that isn't the broadest stroke summary ever of Paprika, I don't know what is.
You know, bad guys and stuff.
Bad guys' dreams. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess the director of this movie, I had watched his the previous film he'd done right before Paprika, Tokyo Godfathers, on Christmas, because I was looking for some kind of like low-key Christmas movies. And that was sort of one of them. But
how was that?
It was good. I liked it better than Paprika, actually.
Okay.
Next Christmas we'll do Tokyo Godfathers.
Perfect. Everything should be normal.
Everyone just
then.
wait. Yeah.
In fact, we might actually go to see it in the theater. We'll figure something like that out.
Yeah. Yeah. In the Mind Palace of the DC Mini, we'll be in that theater.
I'm fine doing it virtually. I'm okay with that. I'll visit people in my dreams.
But, the movie's interesting. I guess the guy only did 4 movies, but definitely Tokyo Godfathers was, you know, for me anyway, the better movie. But this one was interesting. I do like the way that they kind of took that dream world that we, you know, were able to experience a little bit in Dreamscape, and play up that idea of being able to you know, be somebody else in your dreams, which is, you know, what the Dr. Chiba was doing as her alter ego Paprika in the dreams. Because I guess, you know, in Dreamscape it's the like you said, the snake thing, and in Inception it's basically the, like, you know, the Tom Berenger, like a deep fake that they do.
Yep, exactly. That's another example. Yeah,
with what's his name?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, the other Tom.
Yeah, the other Tom and Tom. Who can best play Tom Berenger? Tom Hardy. I thought that was really interesting how they did that, and that was actually his specialty. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about with Inception was everyone had their role. You know, you had the architect, and you also had the thief, you know, who was Leo. He was kind of the one that would go in and steal the info or implant the info in the case of the Inception. But then you had the architect who was going to create the world around them, Elliot Page's character, which I thought that those scenes were my favorite of Inception, especially, you know, in that when we were learning the rules and how she was building something familiar to her and how that was like against the rules. Don't try to build things that are too big that you know of, because you'll never, you'll lose the fact that this is a dream versus what's reality. And, he was like, just take little bits, make little bits, and like, don't take like full areas. And she was just building and building, and it showed like how advanced she was versus Lucas. I guess it was Lucas Haas, right? The first architect that got taken out. He seemed kind of a weak sauce version of Elliot Page's version.
Right, exactly. And it was because, what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio, the Cobb, the Bob Cobb of the Cobb salad family, couldn't do it anymore because, all of his guilt with, his wife and everything.
Yeah.
And so, you had to subcontract his dream building. But I guess that was an interesting thing that wasn't explored in the other two shared dream movies, which is that like someone is there architecting the shared dream experience.
Well,
right?
Dreamscape was the dreamer. They created the world. You would just share the space. I think they did say something like that.
But it was like, yes, that's true. But in this one, it is specifically that dreamer, and then it was like architected by a third party potentially. Right. In Inception, I mean. So
it's complex.
Yeah.
To say the least.
It's really easy to explain.
Dense movie. It's not to say I don't like it. I do have to say, though, I feel like the mix of Nolan's films does not give enough volume to dialogue. And it really, like, I love, like, it's Hans Zimmer music blasting while all this stuff's going, but they're giving you, and like you said, it would help if I was reading the subtitles, but they are giving you
endless,
bam, 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 rocket fire information, and sometimes it's a little low. Not the Bane low that you couldn't understand what the hell the guy was saying, but...
Well, they did have some of that in this, which is mostly Saito, the Ken Watanabe character. They would give him very, sort of toothsome dialogue, and he would have trouble with it. And it's like, he would give a very sort of knowing and, clever response to the point where it's like, wait, what? What did he just say? Or like, there are two parts in particular. One, right before he died in the sort of James Bond level, he mumbled
the
something.
snow level?
Yeah, that like was like hard to understand.
No room for a tourist on these jobs.
And then at one point he's like, I bought the airline because it just seemed cleaner that way or something like that. And it's like, I was like, what the fuck did he say?
I bought the airline. It seemed neater.
But like, and also I guess what's her name too? Marion Cotillard. I never know how to pronounce her last name. She had certain lines that, for someone as English as a second language, it's like a little too sort of clever for them, and it is much harder to say than some more straightforward stuff.
Right.
And because of that, then it becomes like come again, and and then when you add on that mix part of it, like when you're listening to Tom Hardy or Leo or something, you pretty much are following what they're saying.
Especially Leo.
Yeah, and it's like, I know people would get upset about the Bane voice and like not being able to understand it. I mean, it's true.
I had a hard time understanding it.
A lot of the Bane voice was unintelligible.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, but in this one, it seemed pretty crucial because it was like, all these little details about how we're supposed to understand what's going on. Now, I also, all that being said, I'd say that like the movie does a really great job of, even though all the details are a little hazy, most of the time for most people, I would say, the general thrust of it is very clear. And
yes.
And you like I was saying earlier about the like, oh, if we are sedated and we wake up in this unconstructed dream space and blah, 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 and our minds will be mush and whatever. And like, you kind of just understand that you can't get shot. Oh, okay. Got it. Let's, I agree. We can get back to like the van chase and like going on the bridge and falling
God,
in slow motion and all that.
I love that though. That basically that van falling in the water became the clock for the last like 20 minutes of the movie. And when it would come back to it, it was just like a little bit closer, a little bit closer. I thought that was really, really clever.
Right.
I want to talk about Marianne Cotillard's character, the Mall character. She had some horrific elements to her. She was like this rogue memory in Cobb's psyche,
right,
that would completely tear down whatever dream that they were in or whatever architecture they created for this dream. And I thought she did a really good job. Sabotage, right? And she would do anything she could to sabotage it. And I thought that was an interesting villain. I don't know what you'd consider like a sub-villain or something like that within the story, but she was always there and always like a pest to him. And it was really cool that was kind of his handicap when it came to these dreams, because he was so good at it, but because of this one thing, he couldn't do it anymore. Not like he once did.
Yeah, I mean, it's the details of their relationship and how or why he feels so guilty and why she's haunting him and everything else, I think are sort of crucial to understand the Cobb character.
Yes.
But there are also details that, like with the sound mixing and like with the sort of rushing of exposition, were ones that you would very understandably not pick up on. And it's, for whatever reason, that the first couple times I saw it, my impression was that in order to get out of the very, very deep dream state, he has to convince her that, the best way to do it is to, lie on the train tracks and, you kill yourself, quote unquote, and then you wake up in real life. And she was convinced that in that dream world that like that was life, and he had to, implant in her mind otherwise. And in order to get out of that deep dream state, he puts the spinning top inside her mind. And then that wakes her up from the sub-basement level dream.
But now we're on garden level.
Yeah. And now that we're back on to the ground floor,
right.
She, deep inside her mind, doesn't believe it's real.
Right.
And then kills herself over that. And that's
tragic.
That's the story. And then that's the guilt he had. So, but for whatever reason, when I saw it the first couple times, I thought that he implanted that in her mind just for sport, to like see if it could be done type of thing. But now it makes a lot more, like this viewing, it made a lot more sense that like, no, he was trying to, get her to be motivated to wake up out of the, basement level purgatory that they were in and like growing old and
right.
Remember that part.
Limbo, right? Or something similar, more of a purgatory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like limbo was the term I was searching for earlier. I couldn't remember it. But yeah, it's like the fourth layer, the limbo thing.
I completely forgot that subplot. I do remember that she was in there, interrupting the dreams and interrupting the work that these folks are doing. I just didn't remember all of the details of it. And I think that they presented that piece extremely well in the film and very touching. And it really helped to grow the Cobb character. I mean, he was pretty damaged. I mean, you kind of get that idea, but then you see more of that.
I mean, he was, the exploration of that character, like, there's a lot more to be mined out of that. I feel like, the focus was definitely more about the sort of the heist and everything else.
The movie could have been 4 hours long.
But what's his name? Nolan was able to sort of thread that needle a little better in Interstellar, of like getting you to understand the character a little more and having the crazy adventure.
Those movies feel similar to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially, they do some of that sort of relative time thing in Interstellar as well. But in Interstellar, I feel like more successfully the parent-child relationship, and then like sort of the main character, the Matthew McConaughey character's motivations and his journey and emotional journey and whatever else was understood a lot better by the audience than I think in Inception, where it's still a little cold. Like you kind of understand that. I mean, at least I did on this round, but it's still a little cold in that like the resolution itself isn't quite spelled out. And then on top of that, like the sort of silly, ooh, gotcha ending. Like, you watch this movie for fucking 2.5 hours and then it's just like, psych. It ends like a 30-second commercial. Like, ooh.
Do you mean the very ending with the top when they
the cut to black. Is the top gonna fall? And we cut to black.
It kind of does, and then it doesn't, and then cut to black. Yeah. I'm all for an open-ended ending, but sure. I would have liked a little bit more closure on this one because I still feel like I'm watching the movie in like the third or fourth level of this movie in my brain right now.
And I mean, the thing is, like, if it is all just a dream and that's how it ends, like, what's the point? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like why are we watching this movie? Like, what are we getting out of this?
Now, I kind of had another interpretation or another read on that, was that he, everything was, the mission was successful, but Leo never made it out of there. And so by the time we get to the ending, we do see everything almost in real time up to when they're on the plane and Cillian Murphy
is waking up from the dream or whatever that thing. Yeah.
I think that he's already in the dream still, and that's kind of his. I mean, they did a great job of presenting the dizziness or like the nausea associated with like waking up from these things, because you kind of look around the room and everyone's looking at you like, hey, we did it. You got Joseph Gordon-Levitt kind of giving you the thumbs up. Hey, we did it. But you're like, am I even fucking awake right now?
Right.
Like,
well, and it's also like, just for the audience, it's like the whole experience was just so intense.
Sure.
And like it was just it was good to like have that little
reprieve. Yeah.
But what I mean is, like, if it's a matter of like he died to do the Inception, it's like, well, why? I mean, like, really, like the story like that you're supposed to care about is the Cobb story. Like, can he get his name cleared? Can he get back to his kids? Like,
right.
And is he going to be able to forgive himself? All these questions. The story of the corporate espionage and like, breaking up the monopoly or whatever, it's like that is not that interesting. Like, who cares?
Right.
Like that's just the sort of train tracks they're on to sort of like, have this story with Cobb.
Plus, it's a cool mission. It's a kind of a realistic mission when you think about it, right? Like, that's why you would send in like spies, is to grab or change information, right? So this is a new way of doing that. And it's simple when you think about it, with this incredibly complex way of doing it.
What do you mean?
The act of going in and getting information from something. You can always go into a safe in real life and go steal that information.
Oh, I see.
Simple plot, right? You get two criminals, they go in and they do it. So it's the same kind of story. However, this safe is located within someone's subconscious, and this safe holds information that you can only get from inside of a brain. It's not written out loud, things like that. So it's a simple
they're trying
concept.
To put something in the safe, not take it out, right? I mean,
which makes it even more, which is still a simple concept when you think about it, right? But it's complex as hell for this story.
Everything about it is super complex. I mean, it's like, and that was the thing, is like, at this time in his career, I was convinced that Christopher Nolan was not capable of making a movie where you would understand and like have an emotional relationship with the character.
Really?
Even
you mean post Batman and
even
The Prestige?
in Memento, like it's there, and I do feel it, but I like supposedly that a lot of that stuff kind of came from Guy Pearce. And
really?
To me, it seemed like Christopher Nolan was this guy who was this, beautiful clockmaker. He can make this extremely intricate, really beautiful and intelligent and, great to look at, lifeless object,
Sure.
And I think, at least thus far, I haven't seen Tenet yet, so caveat. But I mean, thus far, Interstellar was the one that he was able to sort of do both. And Memento, but I think that was mostly, like I said, it wasn't like necessarily intentional. Not that matters. But
I've heard a lot of mixed thoughts on Interstellar. I think that's his best film by far. I thought it was incredible. I thought it was incredibly well done. I thought the story was fantastic. The effects alone were fantastic. I would like to speak of the different effects for dreams in these films and how, obviously Nolan is a big proponent of real production, real practical effects. Those scenes of Joseph Gordon-Levitt flipping around in that hallway, it's kind of an old school effect.
The Paprika scenes.
Exactly. Paprika. those kinds of things. But I also think Dreamscape, for the $6 million 1984 budget that they had, did a really good job of portraying dreams. They did the whole dream logic, but they did it within the means and the limits that they could do there. But Inception is just so amazing, and that effect is so old. Keeping the camera stagnant with a rotating room, walking on the walls and everything.
Right.
That's been done so many times.
Fred Astaire movies and 2001 and
But it's this new application of it that just made it so fresh. I thought that was a great tribute to old Hollywood while still bringing something new to the table.
Right, exactly. And like, something that the new part was that, like, you didn't do that in action movies type of thing. It's like,
right.
No, action movies are, you stand on the ground and you do the Bruce Lee kung fu thing, or you are doing the John Woo shoot 'em up type of thing. Like, that's the action movie. But what if gravity itself was like turning around and around, and like it was such a crazy to see realized not in cartoon form, I should say.
Yes, exactly, and to be so successful, like it looked so great. The fact that it was also because of something physical happening outside of the dream world, the car tumbling or something going on outside, those caused those kicks that they were talking about, or, those different things, like the water, somebody peed their pants and all of a sudden it starts raining. And he's like, I shouldn't have drank all that water before going to sleep. And he's like,
Wait,
and then
I don't remember the peeing the pants part.
Yeah. He's like, I drank too much before I went to sleep because it starts raining when they get there. And Hardy's like, can you, maybe not drink so many cocktails before going to sleep or something like that?
Couldn't have peed before you went under, sorry.
Bit too much free champagne before takeoff, eh, Yusuf?
Aha, bloody ha.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember what you're talking about. Yeah. He was the sort of, the cocktail doctor.
That's
Dr.
him. Yeah.
Sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dr. Nick.
Yeah. Dr. Nick Riviera.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Little throwback to one of our previous episodes. Dreamscape was written by Chuck Russell, who directed Nightmare 3.
Yeah, and co-wrote Nightmare 3 and co-wrote the Blob remake with Frank Darabont. Yeah, exactly. Well, let me go back a second. So Dreamscape, I didn't realize how low budget was just from, you look at the cast and, you're like, okay, well, maybe some of the stop motion and some of the blue screen, or the opening shot, for instance, the blue screen is, less than convincing at the moment.
Yeah.
With our eyes now.
The cosmic dream entrance is a little cheese, but yeah.
Yeah. The, right. The, like, I don't know, falling into the cosmos, which is you falling asleep, I guess. But
That never happened to me.
yeah, it's weird, huh?
I can't relate.
It doesn't seem familiar. But this is the same year as the first Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
84?
Uh-huh.
That sounds right.
And I guess what a crazy zeitgeist of, like, having two sort of, like, dream-based horror movies that way, where it's like, or shared dreamscape horror movies. Right.
They do feel similar, right? There's a killer in your dream, and if you die in your dream, you don't wake up. It's the same story as Freddy.
And he even has the knife fingers at the end.
Yeah.
Bon appetit, bitch.
I was waiting for a Freddy line there.
Yeah.
Abracadabra.
It's interesting to have two dream death movies in the same year. It's almost like The Prestige and the other magician movie that came out.
The Illusionist?
Sure.
Yeah, I maybe that does happen that way. This also, came out at the same time as the only other movie I knew Kate Capshaw from,
Raiders of the Lost Ark?
No, Temple of Doom.
Or Temple of Doom, yeah, sorry. And it's the same poster, you're right.
Yeah. And, you have a little of that, was the president seeing his own dad in that dream? Or
No, that was Tommy Ray or whatever, the bad guy, David Patrick Kelly. He had murdered his father back in the day, and Dennis Quaid, Alex, he used that as his alter ego.
That's what it was. Okay, that's what it was. Because that also reminded me of the sort of Tom Hardy, Tom Berenger
Yes.
Body takeover. Yeah, I guess they did do that.
That's more of a one-to-one comparison.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, his father. Well, he wasn't a father though, right?
No, father figure. I guess
Father figure. Yeah, exactly. Uncle.
family council.
Something. Yeah, no relation at all, Brian.
No, he was an uncle or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Inception, but anyway, yeah, and so there were a couple things that kind of reminded me of Inception, aside from just that shared dream. The Tom Berenger thing. I guess the sort of the ruins of the Capitol and the nuclear Holocaust dream at the end there. Kind of reminiscent of the ruins of the sort of fourth layer limbo dreams. Only with super red, Total Recall on Mars,
miniatures
filters on it. Yeah.
Yeah. What a beautiful presentation that was, though, it was that pure glass lake or river. And then their old, in Inception, their old family house was one of them. And like a building they lived in at one point or something. And it was just like very individual. I thought that was incredible. That to me feels like if you were to live in a dream and you did want to make a perfect world around you, that's kind of what it would be like. It would be pieces of your memory stuck in like really odd areas, just put that here, put this giant TV here,
Right. And like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, that must have been fun to do, to build these worlds and everything else. And then you could also visit whichever place you'd want. But, but then the problem becomes like, they are the only people in their world. Yeah. So then it just becomes like, it's like too lonely. Yeah, exactly. And like, he wanted to kind of wake himself up. But just finish up on the Dreamscape thing. Like, at least they acknowledge that dreams can be sexual, right? There's a horny component to these things, and whereas like Inception, it's a little too cold and action oriented for that. The only reason you dream is just to
have an action
ski
movie
and live out the opening stages of GoldenEye or whatever.
Well, if it isn't physical, he'll experience 3 or 4 erections during the course of the night.
I see. So, Jane, what'd you do here in effect is count boners?
Yeah, a little different in Dreamscape, where we actually see somewhat of a sexual dream where he enters, and that's what I was saying before. It was, not the most appropriate scene for the movie, but she did handle it well. At least she acknowledged that he was entering her dream without her permission, without so much as saying, "Hey, get the fuck out of my head."
Yeah, I mean, the entering the dream was the stepping over the line morally that he did. But it's interesting, like their relationship in real life was at a certain stage at that point, and their relationship in the dream could be something else.
Right.
And since they're both there, it's like it becomes this other thing.
Which at the end they tried to recreate by taking that train trip. And if you notice, they go on a train at the very end, and it's kind of them reliving that dream. And then they see the conductor or the guy that's taking the tickets, same guy, and you're like, maybe not.
So isn't that an interesting ending of is this a dream or not?
I thought that was an interesting ending.
Well, the music tells you, no, it's fine. But actually, like what you're presented, it's like, wait a minute, are they still dreaming? Because they see the same guy, they're on a train like that. It's funny. You're right. The first time they cut to the train. At the end of the movie, I thought, they're kind of going for the sort of North by Northwest ending, and we're going to see the train sort of drive into the station. There's sort of Freudian image, but no, it became this other thing of are they still dreaming?
Right,
which is an interesting way to do it. I mean, like I said, the music kind of lets the audience off the hook a little bit, never mind. It's like
right,
but they do sort of have that same or what would become the Inception ending of did they or didn't they?
Well, also I feel like Inception kind of took that part of Dreamscape into other territory, that if those two folks were dreaming at the end, it would be a similar situation that Cobb and Maul would be having, just laying on the floor, each of them sharing their dreams or in different chairs or something. And you could kind of cut back to them and they would just be sleeping. and then you see this whole thing, but it's almost like Inception gave you a big extension of what could go wrong if that actually happened. When we see how, Maul gets trapped on there and
right. And and how she couldn't let go of that world and her reality of it. And then once she was able to do that, then she couldn't let go of the idea that she was dreaming all the time. Which is, fascinating. And it's, it's also sort of a fascinating exploration of, that idea of addiction, or like some of those things that, Philip K. Dick would be obsessed with like, what is reality and what is not. And, I think, on all those levels, Inception is like, really, really successful. They also were able to, take some of these heady ideas and make it in a super entertaining package that could appeal to people who wouldn't necessarily want to think about those things.
I feel like that's what Paprika was. More of a visual thing that didn't really cause too much thought. It was more of an entertaining piece, but very similar in structure. Yeah,
but I think on the entertainment dial, like, Nolan cranked his up a little more, of like it just being like, I really think, just in terms of like the way the movie works, basically right until you got to the GoldenEye level, it was so engaging, you almost can't take your eyes off it.
Absolutely not.
It starts to like lose a little momentum there in the GoldenEye section, and then when they get to like explaining the mall thing, it's a lot of exposition at this like really tense moment. You're like, let's go, like we're trying to get the mission done. And so I think sort of pacing wise and structure wise of that story, like it has that tough sort of threading that needle there, but I think because the rest of it's so successful, you kind of like forgive some of the like the shortcomings of the end there.
I feel like that's how what people feel of The Dark Knight as well. There's a really good performance in there. There's some cool scenes. Yeah. However, there are some major plot holes and things that just kind of don't get resolved, but you're okay with it, you know, because it's a decent package.
Yeah, I mean, the insane spectacle of it, well, I mean, the thing with Dark Knight is like that, it's ostensibly a Batman movie, but the only character you give a shit about is the Joker. Like,
absolutely,
you don't care about Batman or Rachel. Like, you don't care about that relationship.
I could have watched a 15-minute movie with just Joker scenes, and that would have been fantastic.
Well, that's what everyone was responding to with that movie. It's like, that's why it was so successful.
Yeah.
And the Joker is the character that everyone was excited about. He's the sort of smart and devious one, and he's like always a step ahead and all these things. And the one sort of challenging everyone's sort of preconceived notions of everything. And Batman was just such a loser.
Yeah.
In that movie, and then on top of that, like there's always like this awful message at the end. But in that one, it's like, this just the insane spectacle, and it was almost the beat for beat time wise, the insane spectacle, like built to the certain point, and like the sort of third set piece wasn't as exciting in Dark Knight as it was not exciting in Inception. Whereas like in the second act, it's like we got the like semi truck flipping over and all this stuff, and sort of madman-like insistence that Nolan has of trying to do these things for real, I mean, really, really pays off in those moments. And
it absolutely does, yeah.
I can't remember if I told the story on the show or not, but we went to go see Dunkirk in IMAX when that was coming out. And the trailer that played before that was for the Justice League movie.
Oh, God.
What are your superpowers again?
I'm rich.
If you remember that happened.
But I do remember that, yeah.
The Justice League trailer was like watching a trailer for a video game. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like nonsense and it's just being sprayed at you with a fire hose. And then in Dunkirk, it was like everything, all these like things where he would like, GoPro mount an IMAX camera on the planes they had. I can't remember the name of the plane. And, having the boat kind of tip over for real and all these things. It's like, there's this sort of like authenticity that like that being juxtaposed with that computer generated, video game fire hose was night and day of like how thrilling those things were. I mean, like, as sort of light on story as Dunkirk was, like the thrilling experience of watching it that way, there's definitely something to be said for that. And like, especially in that sort of scale and everything else. And Inception was the same way. I mean, like, I saw it in that exact same theater where it was like, and seeing it in such a, like a, sensory overloaded capacity, was fascinating. Anyway, I don't know what the hell we're talking about with Inception, but it's like, I ended up enjoying it this time around. This isn't one of my favorite Nolan movies, but it was somewhere sort of like right in the middle. But I did end up enjoying watching it this time. And I think what it really is that sort of that handoff to the third act that sort of like loses steam. It doesn't pay off that like the Joseph Gordon-Levitt and the Elliot Page storyline, they have this like hinted at relationship or something that then kind of is like nothing to do with anything. They are just there to sort of deliver exposition about Cobb, the Leonardo DiCaprio character, and it's like on repeat viewings, like experiencing that through their point of view isn't interesting. Why does Elliot Page give a shit about Leo so much? I mean, I get that he's addicted to that world of like, experience this dream like this, but like, why was it that all of a sudden it mattered, whether, Leo recovered from this thing or not to that character? It's like, not clear. The reason is really, it's like they needed these story device characters to like, spit out exposition about Cobb. But, so it just becomes one of these things that's kind of a weakness of the film. But like,
right.
And the fact that it's like super convoluted or whatever. But like the thing is, you can kind of like unpack those things, and that could be kind of interesting to kind of like, oh, how does this fit with that? And but as an experience as a whole, you get out of this really intense experience and you're kind of left still a little hungry at the end there. Like, did I get the full meal of this Cobb character study? And the answer is I don't think you did,
No, I don't think so either. Has there been any talks of a sequel to this? Nolan hasn't done any sequels outside of, the Batman, but
Batman stuff, yeah. I don't know. But Nolan's movies are just such an engrossing experience or whatever. I tend to want to like know as little as possible going into it. I don't like watching those trailers anymore or whatever. It's like, okay,
hell no.
I'll go see his movie, but I don't even want to know what it's about. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to see the poster.
I agree. Yeah.
I just become like this, like neurotic mess. Like, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know it. I don't want to. I'm not listening to you.
Because that's the joy of his movies, though. It's just always something brand new.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and the spectacle of some of the unexpected stuff, which is like some of the stuff that he handles so well. I guess I have to say, like, I was talking about how he wasn't able to sort of complete the character thing very well. He did do it a little better in Insomnia. But it's been so long since I've seen it, but like, I remember there was something where it just like, it didn't quite have the sort of emotional satisfaction that the movie seemed like it was building toward, or wanted you to understand intellectually, that you did understand intellectually, but it wasn't, fully landing the same way. But
now that was the Pacino and Robin Williams Insomnia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never saw that. It looked interesting.
Yeah, you should check it out. We'll have to watch it at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to bring that up.
Let's find all the Al Pacino movies you haven't seen that are classics then.
Hooah!
Wait, not that one. Watch that one again recently. Whew, not so hot. Oh, well, one last connection thing that we didn't talk about in Dreamscape was the very, very ending of Dreamscape, like the fate of Christopher Plummer.
Yeah.
Reminded me a lot of the sort of, Joseph Gordon-Levitt in that hallway and like getting to that elevator and everything. They did almost that exact same look in Paprika. There was a lot of like, messing with the elevator and like, you go to the 17th floor and like, that kind of stuff that they did in Inception as well. Like the elevator metaphor was in all three of these films.
Right, because that's how how Elliot Page found him down into the level, right? She took the elevator
It's like sort of his memory elevator or whatever that was, his guilt elevator.
What a cool shot too. It could have been some CG, but it was just the doors framing the entire shot, the doors of the elevator, and then it just going down and you seeing these different levels,
into
passing
the beach
by.
Scene
really
exactly.
Brilliant. Yeah.
No,
You're
really
right
well
though.
done.
Nolan's great at presentation. I would say that his the minuscule action that he shoots is probably not the best, but his grand scale on things is amazing. Like sometimes his fights don't feel too exciting to me, especially in the Batman movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's the thing is I feel like sometimes he just runs out of steam or something. It's like, because the
just get the shot.
If you
kind of one of those things.
No, if you think of the Dark Knight set pieces or whatever, where it's like, you got the giant semi truck that flips over, like that's just it's mind boggling how crazy it is.
It's huge. Yeah.
And then you see the night vision goggles or whatever to oh, those are cops, and it's like that set piece at the very end, it's not exciting. Same way that the shootout in the rain with the train coming after them, and it's a kind of a car chase, was thrilling in Inception, but the stuff with the GoldenEye, the James Bond, Majesty's Secret Service ski trip, assassinations, wasn't that exciting? And I think some of that is the action you're trying to follow is can they get this guy into that fortress or whatever, and then the machine guns and whatever else, and the skis and the little Humvee on the tank treads is kind of a distraction from what you're caring about at that moment, which is can they get this guy in there?
That was more cool and more production value, in my opinion, just to see that giant tank with treads on it. It was pretty awesome. Ski treads.
As a stunt and everything else, those things are super impressive. But it is sort of diminishing in and I don't know why. It's why is the shootout thrilling downtown, but not the one, at the ski lodge or whatever?
Maybe because we saw World Is Not Enough already, or, one of these other...
Majesty's Secret Service, But, or we already played that level of GoldenEye.
But Nolan was up for directing a Bond movie for quite some time in the trade, so I'm wondering if this was his application.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember it sort of bothered me that at the time that God, this looks so much like James Bond, and we've seen this one before, what the fuck is this? But I guess it also kind of works in the sense that in a dream reality, having something familiar like that in an action piece, would kind of work. Maybe that's what it is. Because in the two other levels of the dream, you didn't feel the reference that was being made as much, unless you were super familiar with Paprika in level 2,
right?
Or level 3 was heat plus rain, and a train going down 7th Street.
Also a practical effect too.
Yes, which is awesome. I mean, and it totally pays off. I don't know.
It's so sick. Where the hell did that come from?
And the avalanches they caused or whatever, that wasn't CG. That was also a practical thing
so
too.
Cool.
It's wild. I mean, he does some really, really wild stuff, and it pays off in the movie. When you're watching it, it is all the more thrilling because you can see that Joseph Gordon-Levitt or whoever is interacting with this wall that's there. He's not on strings in a green screen.
Right.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to kind of connect all of the movies a little bit too is
please.
In Paprika they have the reoccurring hallway that the sort of detective guy ends up seeing. It's this thing that's sort of haunting him, and the kid who's murdered that he sees over and over and again in his dreams is sort of he's falling but very, very slowly, and it has that feel of Inception where they're kind of in the sort of 0G, and then also that hallway itself, as gravity gets turned around on Joseph Gordon-Levitt in Inception, it looks very, very similar in Paprika, or as if Paprika was sort of the storyboard for
Totally.
for Inception.
Yeah.
And then, you can kind of see a little bit of the decor in the sort of Japanese castle set in Inception mixed with the decor of that bar set that they had in the second level of the Dream of Cillian Murphy. Both of those really, really reminded me of the sort of radio club bar in Paprika, if you remember that, which is a dream bar, too. But that, and then obviously the DC Mini itself, like, which is able to connect your mind and share a dream. It's funny, like, unlike maybe some of the other inspiring series, this stuff, I think, sort of broad strokes were kind of taken from these two movies, and then there are some of those specifics, but again, like everything we've kind of covered thus far anyway, the sort of rip off at the end of all this did so very successfully and was able to sort of pull off and justify it, I guess, using these things as inspiration.
Copy that, and we've said it before that these artists copy, they take, they steal a little bit, but they make it their own. And I think Nolan's a perfect example of taking some great inspiration and really making it his own. Any Christopher Nolan movie I watch, it feels like a Christopher Nolan movie. He has a real signature.
Mm-hmm. No, totally, and it's like, I guess this movie was like sort of at the time like very, very praised for being as totally original as it was, and like and it was a thing where it's like, this isn't a franchise that he was doing or a remake,
right?
And it was a huge studio movie. So and in 2010 that starts to become a very rare thing, but I think as we've kind of shown with Dreamscape, Paprika, others, maybe even The Cell a little bit, there were certainly movies that kind of came before this that had some of that shared lucid dreaming, mind games and everything else. But he also was able to bring a lot to it, and I think, again, did so very, very successfully. The movie itself is very, very engaging, despite the fact that you're not totally following all the details and whatever else.
You brought up The Cell. I think that was part of our original trio of films for this discussion, right?
Yeah, well, I had kind of suggested that one.
I love that movie.
As like, it's like, okay, they're digging through this mine to try and find something. It was kind of like Inception in reverse. Instead of trying to plant something, they're trying to extract something.
Extraction.
But I think your suggestion of Dreamscape was definitely the better way to go, and like I said, I hadn't seen it, so it was really fun to.
When I saw Inception for the first time, I was such an asshole about it. I'm like, this is Dreamscape.
Yeah.
I'm like, fucking cheater, Now I see the value in that movie, especially I think this is probably the second or third time I've seen it, and really paying attention to it this time. It's a really impressive movie. Like you were saying, it's just these scenes and set pieces are so impressive. Like, yeah. He is just out of this world in terms of development and direction. I'm really glad we watched these. These were a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really like doing these inspiring.
I love them.
Things.
Yeah.
I mean, it is fun to kind of like break down, a popular movie and like some sort of maybe less popular or whatever else, things that kind of came before it, and like how the inspiration was drawn, but then also like what they brought to it.
Absolutely, yeah. This was a good one. Next week, we will be taking a look at anime. Very excited about this. Although we did have an anime in this block, we would just wet our whistle as we're going to be doing a trio of films. This is our Anime 101. We're going to be looking at Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which is Miyazaki's film pre-Studio Ghibli.
Okay.
So that's quite a while ago. We've got Akira, which is very popular, very well-known film, but just fantastic, and I can't wait to see that again. And then The Professional, Golgo 13. This block kind of started as, for anybody that hasn't really got into anime and wants to dip their toe in, this is a nice little starter kit. So I'm really excited about going through these.
No, that's cool. So that starter kit, I guess, is for me because other than maybe Akira, and Paprika, anime is pretty foreign to me in the sense that I've only seen a handful of them.
Was it not your thing, or you just never really had the opportunity to watch them?
Yeah, I saw Vampire Hunter D, Robot Carnival, and Akira on the Sci-Fi Channel back in the day.
Yeah,
I think.
I used to love manga Saturdays or whatever they call that.
Sort of dubbed in English. But
right.
And then for whatever reason I never really got into it the same way that I did live action films. But definitely excited to see where this one goes.
Yeah, you're gonna be. I think you're gonna be quite pleased with these.
Right on. Yeah, no, can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next week.
Ciao.
They come here every day to sleep.
No, they come to be woken up.